Hello everyone, welcome to my channel, The Science Geek. I am Ratna and I'm happy to share and tell that I'm reviving my channel after a short break. Now, the mission of this channel is to ignite the minds of the students who love science and who would like to keep the tips of the lesson on their fingertips. So the series which I will be presenting you will be some of the lessons of Standard 10th, CBSE board and lessons of chemistry and biology. I am starting with bio lesson. The lesson is, before getting too late, we start with the lesson control and coordination. Now, the lesson's name is control and coordination. I will not be teaching you the lesson. I will be telling you about the basic concepts of the lesson which you should remember and keep in your mind as the last minute revision. Right? Now this lesson is divided into two parts for me and for you also. Two videos I will be uploading. The first part of the video is about the points which I am telling you. We start with what is control and coordination, how it takes place in animals and that too in man. Now this man is a very complicated organism. We term him as the Homo sapiens, the vertebrates, the most evolved one. Now this control and coordination in man takes place through two ways. First, it is through the nervous coordination. Second is through the endocrine system. Nervous coordination means, the word coordination means where all the organs coordinate with each other to produce a proper action. Now they can only coordinate with each other if there is a proper structural and functional unit in that system. And that structural and functional unit in that system is nothing but the neuron. Fine. So neuron is the most important keyword in nervous system. Second way in which man coordinates is the endocrine system. Now this endocrine system revolves around the endocrine glands of your body, which you must have read in your junior classes. The glands like the thyroid gland, the pancreas, the testes, the ovaries, these all function as the endocrine glands. And these endocrine glands help to produce chemical messengers, the hormones. And these hormones, they diffuse in the blood and then they go to produce their action in the target site. So now we will now be concerned with the control and coordination via the nervous system. Nervous system, as I told you, is neuron. So this neuron has a structure. There are the three basic types of neuron and the characteristics of neurons which you should keep in mind, and what does these different neurons do for you and what do they form in the body. After that, what they form in the body, another important thing is they form the circuit through which the entire organs are interconnected through the synapse. That is another keyword you are going to learn now in this part of the video. In the synapse will be the reflex action, the reflex arc. So the first part will concentrate on neuron, the structure, the types, the reflex action, the reflex arc, and then we will end with the brain, the structure of brain and the function of brain. So now, this neuron, what is this neuron? As this figure shows you, neuron is having three basic parts in it. You must have studied across from your class, from your tuition classes, where you are going, wherever you are going. But what to remember is the structure of neuron, like it has the dendrite, the cyton, the nucleus, the axon. Now, first important part is the cyton. This cyton is the central part of the neuron which contains abundant cytoplasm and nucleus, and it is the place for metabolism, growth and repair. Okay, this much: metabolism, growth, repair, keyword. From this is the central part. Second part is the dendrite. The dendrite are the fine protoplasmic processes. Several protoplasmic processes arise around this cyton. So these dendrite, they carry the impulses, nervous impulses towards the cell body or cyton. That is the first thing. And then there is that nervous impulse which is carried to the cyton has to be transmitted further, which is going to the tubular-like structure called the axon. This axon takes away the impulses away from the cell body. Dendrites take the impulses towards the cell body. So the question for you will be, what is the neuron? Give the structure of neuron and write the difference between dendrite and axon, which you should know. The structure of dendrite, the structure of axon, the function of dendrite, the function of axon. Now this axon is further covered by a myelin sheath. This myelin sheath is nothing but a sheath of protein. And this protein, it helps to insulate that axon. And it is said that that axon, which is myelinated, is more efficient in conducting nervous impulses to that which is non-myelinated. So they can ask you another question, what is myelinated axon and what is non-myelinated axon? Okay, and the difference between dendrite and axon. Now, another important thing here which you will keep in mind is, as I told you, the nervous impulse is conducted across the axon. Now, what is this nervous impulse? This nervous impulse is nothing but a self-propagated electrochemical current which is going across the nerve cell. Self-propagated electrochemical current are the key words here, which is going across the axon. Now, when the self-propagated electrochemical current is going across the axon, it is ending, the axon has a terminal end. Okay, and when it ends here, it has to meet the dendron of the another neuron. So this is the ending point and this is the starting point for the another neuron. Between these 2 points, there is a very, very important part known as the synapse. And this is a very small microscopic gap between the axon of one neuron to the dendron of another neuron. And what happens in this synapse, when this electrochemical current is flowing across the axon, a neurotransmitter is released in the synapse. What I said, a neurotransmitter. This neurotransmitter tells the synapse to propagate the message further, not backward. It acts like a one-way valve. Like a one-way valve. Like you must have read the word valve in your life process, the structure of human heart, the bicuspid, tricuspid valve, left side, right side. I'm not diverting you. I'm telling you, recapitulate your knowledge. So it acts like a one-way valve for the conduction of the nervous impulse across. So here at one end of the axon are the neurotransmitters, at the other end are the chemoreceptors. They receive that neurotransmitter substance and they diffuse it and further. Because coordination is nothing where all the organs coordinate with each other. And that is only happens because of the neuron, because neuron is the largest cell of the body and it runs from the head to the toes. So this neuron is able to do this because this neuron is able to take the impulse, conduct the impulse and transmit. Receive, conduct, transmit are the keywords. Receive it, conduct and transmit. Okay, and this neuron is having some basic properties. Like this neuron uses glucose as its respiratory substrate. This neuron, it cannot divide further. Once after birth, what is formed, further it will not divide. Then it will die if it doesn't get oxygen. That's why the brain cells require maximum oxygen. Okay, because the neuron, that's oxygen is for the raw material for them to remain alive. If injured, again they cannot be formed. That is the characteristic of neuron. Now this neuron in the human body is further categorized into 3 types. Okay, sensory neuron, motor neuron, relay neuron. Now this sensory neuron, as the word tells you, sensory tells you what? It will tell you something related to sense organ. So in your junior classes again, on your tips, there are 5 sense organs: eyes, nose, ears, tongue, skin. Now these are the sense organs. Now on this sense organ, the receptors, the sensory receptors are there. These sensory neurons are located on the dendrite, at the tips of the dendrite, because they carry the stimuli from the environment. The stimuli can be in the form of heat, in the form of light, in the form of sound, which we are hearing. Man is surrounded by all these stimuli: heat, light, sound, food, basic things, right? Heat on the skin, thermoreceptors here, light, photoreceptors here, right? Ears, we hear, phonoreceptors here. Then taste, gustatory receptors. These are the basic terms which you should know. So these are the sensory receptors which are located in the specific sites of a vertebrate, that is man. And these sensory neurons, they carry this message to the brain, okay, nervous impulse. They just carry it to the brain and they transmit it to the brain, and the brain analyzes it, the brain interprets it, because brain is having the part in it where it can do it. The neuron cannot do it. Neuron will just carry it to the brain, which is a very important part in the central nervous system. And after analyzing it, interpreting it, that neuron, that particular message, the brain will send the signal in the form of nervous impulse to the another neuron known as the motor neuron. So the motor neuron carries the message away from the brain and the spinal cord, because brain and spinal cord are the two parts of the central nervous system. It carries it towards the effective part, effective gland or effective muscle, which you will see that how the motor neurons carry it. First, the message is taken by the sensory neuron to the brain, it interprets it. After interpreting it, the message is further carried that what action has to be taken by the motor neurons to the effector cell or the muscle cell, and the action is produced. So this is nervous coordination. Now this is nothing but, which I am telling you theoretically, it is known by one word known as reflex action. In man, three types of actions takes place. Keyword. If they ask you what are the basic three types of actions in a vertebrate, your answer should be the three actions are the reflex action, the involuntary action, and the voluntary action. And all the three actions are taking place in the body. They are different, but they are taking place, and they are unique in their own way. So now first, as I told you, you will just remember this key point. Any stimulus, dendrite is taking the stimulus, it is going to the cell body, from the cell body to the axon terminal, from the axon terminal to the synapse, which acts as a one-way valve. The neurotransmitter is released here. From here, the chemoreceptors are there on the other end of the neuron. They receive it, and then the whole cycle gets completed. This is one part. Okay. Now, the other part which I want to tell you here is about the reflex action, as I just told you. The reflex action. Okay. These are the basic things which you should keep in your mind. And you should always keep on asking yourself, how much I know, what I know, right? I am just telling to the new learners, because after the lockdown, your brain has stopped thinking. But you just ask yourself, how much do I know, by evaluating yourself. I am now writing here, reflex action. With reflex action will be another important word, reflex arc. Okay. Now this reflex action is a very, very important thing which takes place in the body. You should know the definition of this particular thing. What is reflex action? A reflex action is defined as a spontaneous automatic response of the organism to any stimulus without the will of the organism. Automatic spontaneous response to any stimulus without the will of the organism. This reflex action is inherited. It cannot be changed. It cannot be changed. The examples are sneezing, yawning, common examples. The contraction of the pupil in the bright light, in the dim light, all these things, this is automatic. It doesn't require the working of the brain. And the significance of reflex action is that it reduces the workload of the brain. Some part of this is done only by the spinal cord. So this reflex action has a flow chart. What will be the flow chart here? I'm just telling you, students. The flow chart, which you all should also keep in mind, is stimulus, the stimulus conveys the electrical impulse. This electrical impulse goes to the spinal cord. The spinal cord sends the electrical impulse to the motor neuron. I had explained you this just now. I'm just drawing the flow chart. Motor neuron. The motor neuron carries this electrical impulse to the muscle or the gland. To the muscle or the gland. The reflex action, stimulus, like a hot cup. You will not keep, this is your hand and the hot cup is here. So your hand will be removed because you cannot keep holding the hot cup like this. Best example, which is given in your book. And then that message will quickly go to the spinal cord. And then the motor neuron from that same end will tell you, you remove it without wasting much time. And the path taken, this path taken by the reflex action is known by the word reflex arc. Because it is looking like an arc. This path taken by the nervous impulse in the reflex action is known by the word reflex arc. I hope I am clear with you that what is reflex action, what is reflex arc, and the flow chart to be drawn here. Okay. And also they will ask you the difference between reflex action, voluntary action, and involuntary action. This reflex action, another thing, is controlled by the midbrain. Okay. And another question here comes, what is the difference between reflex action and walking? Walking is again a voluntary action. It's under your control. And walking is controlled by another part of the brain, which we will study now, known by the word cerebellum. So, reflex action and walking, a very frequently asked question in your exam. So, till now, I hope neuron, structure of neuron, function of neuron, types of neuron, and what is nervous impulse, then what is reflex action, what is reflex arc is clear. Okay, this much. Now we come to the last part of this video, that is the brain. Now I write brain. Now I am not giving you the structure of brain here, that is there in your book. Basically, this brain on your fingertips, you should know here the forebrain, the midbrain, and the hindbrain. Okay, now this brain, first is this brain. This brain in man, vertebrate, is the most important coordinating organ of the entire body. This brain is enclosed in a bony-like structure, again in your junior class, the skull. This brain is having layers of cells around it, known by the word meninges. Now, between those layers lies the cerebrospinal fluid, which is the shock absorber. The key words: brain, cranium, meninges, cerebrospinal fluid. Brain, the human brain. Now, this human brain is like a walnut, if you have seen a walnut. Now, this human brain divided into three parts: the forebrain, the midbrain, the hindbrain. The forebrain, it is divided into two parts basically: the olfactory lobes and the cerebrum. Olfactory lobes and the cerebrum. The cerebrum is the major part of the forebrain. It is the seat of intelligence, it is the seat of thinking, it covers a major part of the brain. It is divided into two hemispheres, right and left. Right cerebral hemisphere, left cerebral hemisphere. And they are equal, they are not equal in male and female. That much I am not going in detail, just telling you cerebrum divided into two parts, the cerebral hemisphere, right and left. The cerebrum is the seat of intelligence. This cerebrum is also it controls all the movements in the body, speech, other functions. Okay, cerebrum. Now this midbrain is the connecting part between the forebrain and the hindbrain. Midbrain, it just connects, and also it controls the reflex action of your body, which I just now told you. Now the hindbrain. The hindbrain is divided into three parts. The first part is cerebellum. Cerebellum. It is not cerebrum, it is cerebellum. So they ask you in your exam the difference between cerebrum and cerebellum. Pons is the second part, and third part is medulla oblongata. So what is the features of hindbrain? Three parts: cerebellum, pons, and medulla oblongata. Now cerebellum, if I start with, cerebellum is the part of the hindbrain. Cerebellum is smaller. Cerebellum is very large. It doesn't occupy much space. Then it is the posterior part of the brain. Then it coordinates the muscular activity of the body. It maintains equilibrium of the body. Cerebellum. Muscular activity, equilibrium of the body. That is done by the cerebellum, posterior part. It constitutes very less part of it. It is not occupying much space like the cerebrum. Cerebrum is in the forebrain, cerebellum is in the hindbrain. You should write these differences in boxes, not in paragraph when they ask you in exam. Cerebrum and cerebellum. Next one is pons and medulla oblongata. Now the pons and medulla oblongata continues as the vertebral column in the human body, right? It is in continuation. And the pons is the place where the other thing, where all your voluntary actions are there in your body. It is some part is done by there also. Okay, so what I wanted to tell you here is about the forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain, the major parts of the brain. And in pons, you should write, it controls many parts of your respiration. And cerebellum maintains the posture, equilibrium, as I told you, and the pons controls respiration. Medulla is the posterior part of the brain. It continues as the vertebral column, and medulla also contributes for the breathing movement, the heart movement, etc. Okay, so in brief, I think the key points only I told you, the key points. So what was the lesson all about? What is coordination? What are the two types of coordination in man? Nervous and hormonal. In nervous, what is the basic structure? Neuron. What is the structure of neuron? What is the feature of neuron? What are the types of neuron? Sensory, motor, and relay. Then after that comes the what is synapse? Function of synapse, reflex action, reflex arc, and their characteristics, difference in reflex action and walking. Then comes brain, structure of brain, function of brain. That is this video all about. And if you like this video, I am just telling about my channel, The Science Geek. You can share, subscribe, and wait till the next video I upload for the continuation of the lesson, which will be related to plants, movement, plant hormones, and animal hormones. And till then, stay geeky.